go back 10 years. Did you think you would be here in your business life where you are?
No, I don't. I really don't. So what's interesting is that I actually started my consulting business 10 years ago. And gosh, I guess the great thing for me was that I made all these plans. I had all this elaborate stuff that I planned on doing, and I took off running towards it. I am not doing at all what I thought I'd be doing. However, the fact that I was in such motion and gained such momentum took me down these roads that brought me to this point where, I absolutely love what I do. I love working with small businesses that, want to grow and maybe want to sell someday, and, doing what I'm doing now. Even looking back and thinking that I would have done, gosh, I probably have done thousands at this point over 10 years, thousands of these types of interviews, being on stages and speaking as an extremely shy introvert. That was not even a thought process 10 years ago. Actually, if I went back 30 years to college, my speech professor that I dropped his class 3 times before I finished it,
3 times?
would probably be shocked at what I do these days. So no, I'm going to go with no. I didn't know I'd be doing this today.
You're an introvert, you said. So how did you get out of that comfort zone? That is a biggie. And how did you get out of it to risk being vulnerable and risk having people say, I don't like what she says?
Yeah, so I'll tell you a little story. So when I started Decisive Minds, January of 2010, I hired a coach right out the gate because I had built all these other businesses. We had sold some family businesses. I was retired. I was in my 40s. And I hired a coach because I had not built a consulting business. And that's what I wanted help with. And I said to him in January 2010, I'm not going to speak. I'm not going to network. I will make all of my money online. That's how I'm going to do it. I'm going to do it in my house behind my computer. I just signed a $9 million contract to sell a company. They're going to hire me. And he was like, yeah, okay. All right. I'll let you try that. Right. So that was January 2010. About October, I realized I was in a lot of trouble because nobody had hired me. I was doing things online and connecting with people and doing all that social media stuff, but not a thing was working. And I was still like, just the thought of going to a networking event gave me hives. It was terrifying. And so my phone rings one day, and it is the director of the eWomen Houston chapter. And she says to me, hey, you don't know me, but I've been watching you online. And I would like for you to come be our luncheon speaker. And so I said yes before she could get the words out of her mouth. And the reason I did that is because I knew that if I thought about it, if I stepped into that terror and fear, I was going to say no. So I said yes. So what's funny is she said, well, great. I heard you wrote a book. Why don't you come talk about your book? And I did. I've written 4 books at this point, but my first book was awful, like beyond awful. And I did not want to go talk about it. And so I said, well, did you hear about my second book? And she said, no. I said, it's called Take Action, Get Profits, 5 Steps to Massive Online Success. She said, that's great. Come talk about that. We set a date. 3 weeks later, I hang up the phone. I'm like, okay, I got to write the book because I made it up.
Oh my God, you're kidding me. Great. I love it.
And so I did. I spent 3 days. I wrote that entire book in 3 days. It was all about social media marketing and online marketing and meeting people online and all that kind of stuff. I couldn't get it printed, so I turned it into an ebook because back in 2010, that was really hot, right? It was new and hot. And so I had this digital book and I show up at the event to speak. I was terrified. Oh my God. It was awful. So they sit me down at the head table. And they assigned someone to take care of me. And her name is Bellany Deshawn. And so Bellany, literally at the table, I was shaking. And so she passes her card over and she says, you got this. You're going to be okay. You got this. She didn't know me, but she could tell I'd never done it before. So I get up, I do a 15-minute talk at this luncheon. 21 women hand me a check to do a course that I'm getting ready to launch. And I'll never forget that. I ran out of that room. I called my coach and I was like, okay, I can do this. Right. So what I realized out of necessity, I realized if I don't step into that fear, if I don't take, it only takes 20 seconds of courage to say yes, right? Or to step onto the stage to become the speaker, or to do whatever that is. If I can get through that 20 seconds, when I get on the other side of it, I'm in my space. I love doing this now because I know this. I know how to teach. I know how to help people. I know what I'm doing. I just have to get past that little shy introvert who's saying, just go play in your room, So, so I do. I just forced myself to do it. And I've done that throughout my entire life, right? So the other trick I have is that, speaking of Bellany Deshawn, she became one of my very first clients out of that. She is still my client today, 10 years later, and she's an extrovert. So I do not go anywhere. She travels to speaking engagements with me. She's usually one of the speakers, but she goes around. We go into a networking room. I don't leave my seat as a good introvert does. And she goes around and brings everybody to come meet me. So it works perfect.
One of the things that you're saying that really, really appeals to that my niche is that it's okay. Just say yes without thinking. And it sounds a little bit like counterintuitive. But a lot of times women I know that I work with a lot are just in that mindset of, I can't do this. I'm too old. I'm too fat. I'm too thin. I'm too whatever. And just saying yes and risking it.
Yeah. Because one of the things I've noticed, Jody, working with all of the entrepreneurs I've worked with over the last 10 years is that it's not from a lack of knowledge. I mean, they're good people. They know what they're doing. They're just too afraid to put themselves out there. Either it is they're not going to write the blog post because they aren't sure the comma's in the right place, or they're not sure that they got all the right content in there, or they don't create their product because they're not sure that what all is going to. Just do it. If I can write a book in 3 days, right? If you just say yes. And the other thing I want to say is understand what it is about you, right? What is it about you that has you complete something? So for example, a lot of people become entrepreneurs who were employees in a prior lifetime. Okay. And so as an employee, we have a boss, we have a deadline. That boss is going to say, what do you mean it's not done? When we become this entrepreneur, we don't have that anymore. So what is it? Do you need to hire a coach or a mentor? Do you need to join an accountability group? Does that is that enough to make you do something? For some people, it's simply they're list checkers. And they want to check off the list. So if they will make the list of all the details of what needs to get done, they'll actually get it done because they're list checkers. What is it for you, right, that motivates you to that end? I happen to know for me, one of those things for me is if I tell you I'm going to do something, I will go to the ends of the earth to make sure it happens. So when I say yes, it doesn't matter how scared I am. It doesn't matter how terrified I am. I'm going to do it because I told you yes. And I can't go back on my word. My word's it's what I got, right? So
you're also saying yes to yourself. And I think that that's one of the things that sometimes the women I deal with, sometimes it's kind of skips over. And I've done it to myself at times. Oh, I'm going to do yoga. Oh, I'm going to do it, and it passes. And I've been on this thing where I'm saying, if you commit to you, Jody, then you better follow through. Pretend Jody is, a client or your best friend. You're not going to say, I'm really not in the mood. I think I'm going to watch TV and not do the exercise. Yeah. And what you're saying is, and I think it works both ways, because I know when I do that, I feel better about who and what I am because I've honored a commitment. Yes, it's my personal integrity, which I value above all else, but also integrity to me, to say I count too.
Yeah. Yes. Very good. I agree. It's just find out what it is for you, as your listeners really should look for what is their self-motivator.
Good point.
Right? And no matter what it is, it's yours. And just because Susie can do it on her own doesn't mean that you can do it on your own. You might have to set certain, if I want when my kids were young, if I wanted them to clean their room, they loved to play games. So we would write on slips of paper everything they needed to get done. We'd fold them up, put it in a hat, whatever they drew, they had to do, right? I mean, that was the game. It worked because that worked for them. So, what is it that works for you.
That is so well put. And it's also that, just like that, reminders or whatever it is. And you mentioned about getting support. And here you are been in business a long time. You grew up. You grew up knowing what it's like to have businesses to sell. And what do you have? You have a business mentor. And this is, to me, a lesson in humility, saying I don't always have all the answers, and smart, because the world's changing. And maybe there's somebody, I know I have a mentor because I don't know. There's a lot I don't know. And I know that's it. And then also I need that support. Like you said, when the woman passed the note to you, having that support saying, you got this. What more can you do? And what do you tell? Like, let's say you got an entrepreneur, and they're really kind of sick of their business, been in it maybe 20, 25 years. And they're kind of like, but their name is their business. If I'm getting too detailed, tell me, because this is a personal example.
I so get that, especially in the space we're in right now. Okay. Because actually this conversation is right up the space where I am. So I've built this business consulting business. I love it. I have worked I've been in business 10 years. For the first probably 8 years, it was almost exclusively coaches who were my clients. And then I started feeling like I needed something different. I needed more or whatever. It wasn't, and it was successful, right? So it wasn't, this isn't working, so I need to go. It's not satisfying to the level that it's been satisfying in the past. And so I started to look at what is it I want to do different. So, and I built Decisive Minds. So first of all, guys, I named my company intentionally so that it's not my name, so that I could sell it at some point if I would like to do that. And Michele Mere is Decisive Minds. That's a fact. I am the one who represents the company. So I am still in that same little space. And so I started to look at where are the God-given gifts I have. The gifts I have are, I'm extremely strategic. I can explain things, like I can just lay it out and people understand. So that's a definite gift. Also, my experiences have been that, yes, I've experienced selling 2 companies, right? I've experienced closing one, failing miserably. I've experienced a lot. What I haven't experienced is the corporate world. Never did that. So actually, I did have a job for like a year. It's crazy, but that was it, and my entire life. So looking at what are those things. So if the question is, I'm not feeling fulfilled, what is it that would bring you fulfillment? Okay. And is it just really a shift in the business that you're already doing, or is it time to sell the business and do something different? Right. So, I mean, the opportunities are so different. For me, the shift came in a form of, I realized I was working with coaches a lot, and I really wanted to work with people who wanted to sell their businesses. And so I just started to kind of have that conversation. I blog a lot. And so I have at this point, I have 1,000 blog posts on my website, and 90% of it is small business focused. But I just kind of started to have the conversations that were a little different, a little more about financial planning, or taking how to hire more people in your business, or how to get yourself out of your business. So I just started to shift the conversation, and those people started to pay attention. And then I did end up with a couple of those clients, and I loved it. Right. And then COVID hit. Now what? So now, now I'm sitting here going, okay, what do I want to do now? COVID hit, and then I live in Lake Charles. So 2 hurricanes, most businesses are closed. They're in rebuild mode. They're not in grow or sell mode. They're in survival mode. So what does that mean for me? I don't know. I have a degree in accounting. I love the numbers. Maybe I go become a virtual CFO for them. I don't know. I don't know what it'll look like in 1 year in my business. Right. But I don't know that I answered your question. Now I just realized it was more about the name.
Well, no, I'll tell you, no, so listen, you are sharing many, many nuggets, many, many important nuggets. if it's somebody is the name, let's say, you know, Jody, whatever, even if you don't have your name, you still are Michele Decisive Minds. Let's
Correct.
say you want to sell the business. What advice would you give somebody like that? Because you are the business, you're selling
Yeah.
your name. So how do you do that in this kind of times? And if so, what would you tell somebody like that? Because there might be a lot of other people like that out there.
Yes. So if they have built the business around their name, there's a couple of different ways you can do this. If we look at what say dentists and doctors, we see a lot of dentists and doctors come into this issue, right? And so coaches and people in consulting businesses are also going to come into these issues. And what they do, what they figured out a long time ago, which was really smart, is that they bring in an associate and they start to transition. The intent is that person is going to buy the business, right? And so, it could look like there's some form of a partnership at first, which shifts over to the other person becoming the name. That's one. The second is, is it about you getting out of the day to day and maybe they keep you as the face of the company? Think Apple, right? I mean, he wasn't necessarily day to day anymore, but he was definitely the face of the company. And so maybe if that's the fun part, maybe somebody comes in. When we sold our trucking company, we sold the company and they kept my brother and myself on as consultants for a year after that, right? So we were still representing the company at that point. So there are several different ways to do that. There is a really big coach in the community who she had her name on her industry, she had her name on her business, and then I noticed that she shifted out of her name as the company name, and she started rebranding. And she's spent like probably 18 months at this point reshifting over. And for me, it was funny. I got one of her emails the other day and I thought, oh, she's successfully done it, because now I recognize that. And if I saw her name pop up is the thing, I'd be like feeling weird about it. So if it's intentional, there's definitely ways to move that. If it's something that has to happen overnight, it's a little more, cumbersome, but it depends on who you're selling to as well, because there's different types of buyers. And so if you're selling to another consulting firm who really is just looking to buy your clients, then they'll suck you up really easy right into their process, and they'll announce that your coaching is now their coaching, right? So it's definitely doable.
Wow, what does failure mean to you?
Opportunity. So I will say that, it hurts. I'll tell you guys a really super quick story. So we had a trucking business, and it was the early 90s, and in Louisiana, we were in the oil field industry, and the oil field industry fell apart. And I don't know if you guys remember, at the late 80s, early 90s, interest rates were like 20%. Mm-hmm. Gas was, it's crazy. It was crazy what we were going through in the South. And our trucking company was in trouble. And the phone rings one day, and I pick up the phone, and I hear the banker's voice, and he says, "Hey, Michele, are you and your dad in the office?" I'm like, "Yeah." The banker doesn't just, So he comes to the office and he says, "Look, guys, it's not me, but my bosses don't think y'all have a viable business anymore. So we need our $1.5 million back."
Oh my God.
Yeah. Talk about feel like you just got hit by a train, right? Now, there's a great ending to the story. The good news is we restructured. We ended up finding a federal loan that would back a federal program that would back our loan. We went on interest-only payments for 3 years, which gave us the ability to catch up. And that's the trucking company we sold 10 years later for $9 million. So it worked out. Okay. But, that was that close to total failure. It hurts. And at the same time, what I never learned to do was just give up. So, we didn't stop, because we just kept going until we found a way to make it work. And we had another company at a different time, that all of a sudden we had an insurance company triple our rate, and it was a hard economy at the time, and we had to close it, which meant we had to we had 5 people in that company working for us at that point, and their families depended on us. And that was like, for a real entrepreneur who cares about what they're doing and cares about the people that work for them, that's like cutting off your leg, right? So it's hard, and it was devastating, and we had to get up the next day and run the rest of our businesses, right? So yeah, failure is just an opportunity to what's next. It is, I believe, you feel the sadness. I know I do for myself. I feel the sadness. I can't stay there because I have too many people relying on me. So I have to get up and do what's next.
And I love that, because I asked you because a lot of times people look at failure that they are the failure. I mean, it's, if you're not in the trenches, and I'm really, really, really paraphrasing what Theodore Roosevelt said, if you're not in the trenches, then no comment, because like you say, failure is really opportunity. And I hear you. I really hear you loud and clear, because I was in a business with my ex-husband a while ago, and we lost the business. And isn't it funny I'm sharing that? It was like losing a baby. I was very,
yeah,
it was sad. It was sad. It was sad, and it was good that it happened. Now I look back on it because there were lessons that I learned, and I got to see certain things that I hadn't seen before. Mm-hmm. So it was good in a very painful way.
It really is. And the saying that God doesn't give us more than we can handle and all that, when you're in the middle of it, it sure doesn't feel like that. But I'm going to tell you, I can look back now and see, just like you're saying, the education from every success taught me something. Every failure taught me something. I've had a lot of failures along the way. That's just one of them, right? And sometimes it's not that your whole business fails. It is that you're in the middle of a project and it goes belly up or whatever. There's lots of opportunity for failure.
Well,
so
yeah, I hear you. And I love it's just keep on. And at the time, I didn't have a choice. My children were younger then, much younger, and I had to support 3 children. Yeah. So I didn't have the time to feel sorry for myself.
Yeah, or the luxury.
Exactly. Or the luxury, probably luxury. And and that helped, actually, knowing that, my 3 kids needed something. And what you're saying is so empowering, because just to say, what is it? You're only a failure when you give up. Mm-hmm. Yeah. And you're such an example of such a winner and somebody who is successful. And, how do you define success? Maybe I should ask you that.
Yeah, that's
how do you define success? For me.
I have to say, how do you define success? For me, as a numbers person, it's usually meeting goals, right? And meeting structure and accomplishing a project. And I have to fuss at myself a little bit about not maybe celebrating those successes as I should, because I move right into whatever's next, because I'm always in overdrive. So, don't do as I say, don't do as I do as I say. And that is, be sure you stop and recognize your successes. I will say this, that when I'm coaching or mentoring a client, that when we start our conversation for that meeting, I start by having them tell me what their wins have been since the last time we spoke. And I do that intentionally, because most entrepreneurs will sit there. They cannot tell you what they did right. They tell you everything they did wrong. And so by doing that, I can help them to see that, we're as an entrepreneur, DNA usually has us really, just have 1,000 things that we're trying to get done at once. We usually rolling all the plates, right? And so we might accomplish 6 and we've still got 12 on the list. So we feel like we haven't done anything. And the reality is that those 6 are done, and you're moving down the road and things are happening and you're accomplishing. And so, yeah, so I'm not the best at celebrating my own successes, but I do. That's one of those things that I have my clients really take a look at, because there are definitely times when they show up at a call and they're like, nothing has worked since we last spoke. Right. And I'm like, really? Because I kind of saw this and I saw that. And they're like, oh, well, yeah, maybe I did that. They don't even recognize it. So
that is a beautiful way to start the conversation about the wins.
Yes.
That is so wonderful. I got to ask you two more questions. One is, how do you see business in going into 2021? What are you expecting? What do you see? You've been around a long time.
Yeah, I think that we're definitely going to be doing it different. I'm going to start with what my fear is. So my fear is that people, there's lots of opportunity to learn about business right now. We are learning a lot. We're learning that businesses who didn't know they could be virtual can be virtual. We are learning that there's all kind of different ways to do what we do, not to stay in the, well, we've done that for this way forever, right? We don't have to do that. My worry is that next year is going to come along and things are going to get better and they're going to get a little more normal. And when they do, people are going to go right back into all their bad habits. And they've really spent 2020 having to fix bad habits, right? And so I really hope that in 2021, they don't just revert back to what they were doing before. I think that virtual is definitely here. And there are things we've been learning about human nature, about buying, the way people buy, the things that they buy over the last, 5, 6, 7, 8 years, where we've seen, there's so much more online shopping or Amazon or, who knows. I don't really expect there to be a lot of in-store Christmas shopping this year, And so how does that look for a small business owner moving into 2021? What are they figuring out? What are they doing differently? I love the stories of like the hairdressers, sending their clients their special hair color treatments through the mail so they can do them at home, right? I mean, there's so many business opportunities. There are businesses popping up around this whole virtual meetings. Now there are event planners for virtual meetings. I have a client actually she's a big time event planner out in California. And all of a sudden, in about a week, everything came to a screeching halt because no more events. And she's took it around. It took her about 6 weeks to figure it out, but she does these massive 3-day virtual events with breakout rooms and speakers and all kind of stuff because she figured out how to do it there. And, it's less expensive for most of her clients and they're loving it and they're making money. And so, how do we hold on to some of that? I will say this, I do believe there is space to have people in the same room. I'm not saying that's not going to occur. I'm just saying that we've seen that things work that people would never have believed would work. So I hope.
Beautiful. Can you share a quote or two that means something to you with us?
Sure. One of my favorite forever favorites is from Maya Angelou. And she said, when you get, give, when you learn, teach. And for me, that just, I didn't know, I would have never called myself an educator or a teacher in the past. And now definitely it's what I love. Right. And so I just absolutely love that quote. And then another one, and I actually keep this on my computer screen. It's been here for probably 9 years. And it says, the only opinion of me that matters is my own. I don't know who said it, but I heard someone say it one day and I jotted it down and stuck it on my monitor. And I see that every day. And, I too struggle just like everyone else does, I think, comparing ourselves to others. And, we talked earlier about the perfectionism and, did I miss the comma that goes in, in the sentence in the blog post? I really had to learn early on. I would not have 1,000 blog posts on my website right now if I were worried about those kind of things. I use Grammarly and it checks it for me. So hopefully I'm close. And, but I had to take that stop comparing myself to others and just run. And that's what I did. And that's brought me a lot of success. So those are my
It's,
two favorites.
and it's so inspiring because at your point in your career, you still, to me, it says we're all human. We never
Absolutely.
arrive, even if quote unquote level, there's always something else. And our
Yeah.
outers are so different, but inside we are so similar.
I used to have one of my old mentors, she would say, new level, new devil,
Oh, I
right?
love
So you
it.
just don't know when you come up to that next level in business, there's next level situations. You don't know that because you're at this level still, right? So, yeah, this is exactly what you're saying. So,
Thank you. Would you please share exactly what you offer and what you do and how you can help the people that are listening today?
absolutely. So, first, let me tell you guys that you should go to my website, which is decisiveminds.com. And I built Decisive Minds to help small business owners. So, you will find, like I said, oh my goodness, any topic you want pretty much on business building, you'll find free resources there, blog posts or ebooks or videos that I've done or whatever. There's tons and tons and tons of information there. So please go check that out. You will also see a couple of products that I also have created. One of those in particular is called Results Based Selling. That program is really about how to hold these sales conversations today, right? Selling today is not the same as it was when I was selling in the grocery store or selling in the trucking company, right? Very, very different animal. So you'll see that on there, and just be connected. My ideal client at this moment is building a small business with the thought process of someday I want to sell it. So I want to build it right. And whether that is that they're just a couple of years in, just getting started, or they've been around for 20 years and they know they're, 5 years from now they want to sell. It works for all of them because you know what? If you're new, just start doing it right from the beginning, right? So many of us realize when I realized that we were really in the process of wanting to sell our company, it took me 2 years to get it ready to sell because there's a lot of things that have to happen for that. So if I had just done that many years before, I wouldn't have had to do those 2 years of work. So yeah, so go reach out, get on my calendar. You'll see links on there to have conversations with me. I invite you to do that.